Welcome everyone to our talk about the myth of the Chimera. This interesting creature from Greek stories shows how myths mix imagination and reality. But where did this story come from, and what does it mean? Let's find out about this famous creature.
The Chimera, in Greek stories, is often shown as a fire-breathing mix with a lion's body, a goat's head on its back, and a snake tail. It's interesting to think about how ancient people imagined such a creature. Some say it shows fears from different animals, a way to tell about the unpredictable and dangerous old world.
In a simpler view, the Chimera can be seen as a symbol of chaos, a monster that heroes like Bellerophon had to fight. This story shows a common idea in myths, people's struggle against chaos, and how they bring order. The Chimera also teaches about the dangers of pride and the need for bravery.
Long ago, the chimera and other mixed creatures might show how Greeks met new animals and cultures through trade and war, leading to creative stories. These creatures make us think about identity and what's natural. The chimera makes us question what is real and what is not.
So as we look deeper into the Chimera story, we see a creature that not only shows old fears and moral stories, but also asks us to think about the complex world. Could the Chimera be a timeless comment on human life? Let's move to the section. Mythological interpretations more than just a monster. The Chimera is scary, but it also has deeper meanings. Can this creature teach us more than just fear?
The Chimera shows mixing in nature and culture. In old stories, creatures like this meant the joining of different worlds like earth and sky, or our own wants compared to real life. It might represent the struggles people have inside.
The Chimera story is full of moral lessons. It stands for pride before failure. Heroes fought these monsters as a test of their spirit, showing that beating inner chaos was as important as facing outer challenges. It teaches us to be strong and humble.
Old stories like these show cultural meetings. The Greeks met new animals and people, leading to ideas like the chimera mixes that questioned identity and belonging, making people think about what being whole means.
So the Chimera is not just a scary creature, but also a strong symbol for inside and outside conflicts. Is it possible that in every story there is a Chimera, a mix of our good and bad, fears and dreams? Now let's move to the science of the Chimera, the idea of mixing. Can the mythical Chimera inspire scientists to study nature's mixes?
It's interesting to note that a chimera is not just a myth. In biology, a chimera is an organism with cells from different sources. This creates unique genetic features. This reality mixes myth and science, showing nature can make these amazing combinations.
Scientifically, chimeras show genetic diversity and evolution. These chimeras, through cell hybridization or organ transplants, help us understand how species adapt and survive. It's a clear example of complexity in nature for resilience.
In history, blending is seen in ancient medicine, where mixtures were used for healing. This is like the chimera, a symbol of mixing, combining things to create new forms or understanding. These practices might have led our ancestors to create myths about these biological events.
So, both the mythical chimera and scientific chimeras make us think about diversity and fusion. Could ancient myths be early ways to understand our world's complex and mysterious mixes? We're midway through learning about the myth of the Chimera. Let's now see how the Chimera appears in today's media. How do people use this creature in art and books now?
In today's media, the Chimera shows mixing of different identities or sides in one being. Artists and writers use it to talk about personal struggles and social differences. It starts talks about finding balance in chaos.
In books, the Chimera often stands for facing tough challenges. Characters meet chimeras as problems inside or outside. This shows their fight against difficulties and their journey to know themselves.
In the past, the chimera was used in talks about mixed identities and cultures. It questions pure identities and shows the beauty in mixed ones. This is a big part of today's talks about world cultures.
It looks like the Chimera is more than just an old Greek creature. It's a strong symbol in modern stories. How does reimagining it affect how we see myths and who we are?
By changing the Chimera, we keep these old stories alive and connected to today's issues. They help us face our own fears, the parts of us we are scared to admit or bring together.
Yes, it's that always present fight between chaos and order. In old stories or now, the Chimera makes us face our fears and grow. This lasting theme keeps its meaning strong and easy to relate to.
And it reminds us how important diversity is. The Chimera, with its mix of different parts, shows how blending ideas can create strength and new things. It celebrates the beauty in being different together.
Could it be that we are interested in the Chimera because we want to understand our complex sides? This mythical creature might show us our own many-sided lives. Now let's get into the main part of our talk. How does the Chimera show the struggles we all have inside? In psychological perspectives, the Chimera within us, can this mythical creature tell us about our own conflicts and complex feelings?
The Chimera, with its mix of lion, goat, and serpent, might show different sides of our personalities, each fighting for control. It shows inner problems and the wildness inside us. This struggle shows the human condition, where we find peace by accepting and balancing these parts.
The Chimera is a good metaphor for our mental battles. Freud's idea of the ego and superego shows this. Like the Chimera, our minds can fight with desires, reality, and morals. Facing and joining these parts helps us beat inner chaos and find peace.
In history, myths show the mind. Jung's idea of the shadow speaks to this, with the Chimera showing the parts we hide from the world. Accepting these shadows leads to understanding oneself more and, finally, a journey toward being whole.
So it seems the Chimera pushes us to face and unite our different inner forces. Could this myth show not just our fears, but the way to self-discovery and balance?
Yes, Michelle. In modern psychology, such integration might mean facing fears, recognizing hopes, and accepting all parts of our mind. Like the Chimera, our journey has scary parts, normal parts, and changing parts.
And in a way, fighting the Chimera is like improving oneself, dealing with, and finally using our inner powers. The myth encourages strength and self-thinking, teaching us that mastering ourselves is as important as winning outside battles.
This talk shows how myth and psychology mix, highlighting the universal fights we all have. In the end, the Chimera is not just a beast to fight, but a symbol of joining our different selves. It's about accepting what we fear in us.
Very thought-provoking. As we go through life's complexities, understanding the Chimera inside us might give us more understanding into who we really are. What if the key to growth is in not just facing our Chimeras, but in accepting them? Welcome to the last debate session on the myth of the Chimera. Today, we are talking about our main question. Is the Chimera still important today? After all we talked about, does this mythical figure still help us understand ourselves and the world?
I think the Chimera is more important now than before. We live in a time of fast change and uncertainty. The Chimera stands for the unknown mixes we deal with every day, like in culture, technology, or personal life. It teaches us to accept complexity, not fear it.
I understand what you mean, Guy, but even if the Chimera's image is still here, I think its real influence has gone down. Today's stories focus more on science and reality. The Chimera can be inspiring in a poetic way, but it doesn't have the same power in our logical world now.
If we say the Chimera is just a myth, we miss its lasting effect. Myths are the base of cultural talks. In a more connected world, the Chimera helps us talk about identity and living together in variety. It is as part of us today as it was in the past.
Interesting views. Guy and Sonia, you're saying the Chimera is a symbol for today's challenges. Ryan, you're pointing to a focus on science. So is the Chimera meant to make us think deeply instead of believing it literally?
Yes, Michelle. The Chimera makes us see beyond strict categories. It shows us the good in mixing, in combining whether ideas, cultures, or even countries. It asks us to push our limits and try to make a whole identity from different parts.
But we must be careful not to make myths too romantic. The Chimera should remind us of the importance of clear, critical thinking. While it can motivate us, we also need to use reason and proof in handling life's problems. Balance is important, and myths should add to, not replace, real understanding.
Ryan, I agree that balance is important. But myths like the Chimera show another way to find truth through emotions and feelings. They can show parts of human nature that logic alone cannot find. Knowing this doesn't take away from scientific truth, but makes our understanding better.
So maybe the real legacy of the Chimera is its two roles as both an old myth and a new symbol, asking us to look at the full range of human experiences. Could this mixing of myth and modern ideas be the secret to fully understanding our world?